What has Excelsior's domain been picking up from eBay? Let's have a look. He may not be the mintiest. I don't know yet. I haven't got about the box, but I caught this auction on eBay and I thought I had him once. Every now and again I find an auction on eBay for him and I think, I should pick him up again at some point because I had him when I was little. And on this occasion the auction came with a box and I thought, now that would be nice. I wonder what sort of silly money this will go for. It's not a perfect box, of course, but it's a box. And I won the auction. And not for silly money either, so that was nice. But I have ended up with I believe a largely complete Thrust. And it's just, this is the first G1 Transformers box I have held in my hands for a very, very long time. I have observed minty boxes from a distance, but I've not actually had one of my very own. And for those unfamiliar, this of course is the G1 Transformer Thrust. He was what has come to be known as a Seeker, a Decepticon jet. He was not in the very, very first wave of UK Transformers, but he was in the one that immediately followed it when they introduced him and Ramjet and Dirge. So I think I liked him because his wings were a bit different. They took a slightly different approach to the wings on these models as compared with Starscream, Skywarp, Thundercracker, who are the original G1 Seekers. It's a classic box approach. You see there the very complicated transformation steps, which I'll probably still mess up because it's been a while since I transformed one of these guys. And you see him in his two modes on the side flap there as well. But this, you see, this just takes me straight back. This is pure childhood memory nostalgia for me. This hilarious sort of, you've got the Autobots flying in space. Apparently the Autobots can now drive in space, which is good, nice for them. We've got people like Sunstreaker, Sideswipe, Prowl, Bumblebee also flying for no apparent reason. This guy who I can't readily identify, Optimus obviously, doesn't have his proper gun, doesn't have his proper eyes, let's face it, or indeed fists. But anyway, we'll skip over that. We've got what looks like Starscream. We've got Soundwave and probably Buzzsaw. But it looks like there were loads of Starscreams if you notice. If you look carefully, I think that's one Starscream kind of on a curve. But and we've got Ravage up there and Laserbeak. So loads going on there. But very, very clever. And would you believe, I just watched a YouTube video on the early Takara adverts for the Diaclone toys that became Transformers, and they actually did quite a lot of this in their cartoons. They'd have them in sort of mid stages of transformation, and then the Autobots would actually fly. Now, of course, they weren't Autobots in those days; they were just part of their sort of robot car series. But it is what it is, I suppose, and maybe that sparked some things. There's actually Megatron down here in the middle right. Now, of course, this thing is the thing of legend, and I don't think I've actually got a tech spec reader these days. But those of you who remember will remember, undoubtedly, that there are little blue graph lines in here, and where they intersect with these black lines coming down, you then can read off the strength, intelligence, speed, endurance, rank, courage, firepower, skill of the relevant bot. And you also get robot points to send away for stuff with. And I remember sending away and getting a transforming Autobot insignia watch. That is what I got with my points, I think. I might have got other stuff as well, but I remember the watch. So, Decepticon Thrust. Function, warrior. Strangely enough, most Decepticons are. My engine's roar is my enemy's song of doom. See, I love this stuff. I like the backstories. And this was something a lot of toys lacked in those days. But I liked the fact that somebody somewhere thought to do this. So I'll read out the whole thing. He rattles the air with a roar of his jets. Believes half the battle is won if the opponent is psyched out by his men's arrival. So he makes no attempt to be sneaky. Pompous, loudmouth braggart, and not too brave. Sudden, powerful acceleration can topple nearby buildings. Flies at Mach 2.5, can double speed in 20 seconds for up to 2 minutes. Carries 4 air-to-air missiles and 2 automatic missile launchers in robot mode. There you go. Carries 4 air-to-air missiles. That's it's a bit stingy, but okay. So, I'm pretty sure that he is not in the any sort of form of vintage bubble wrap, I'm afraid. Clearly the innards are not present. But actually, yeah, I forgot. I think there's going to be more in here than I might think, because I know that the guy found the nose wheel for him fairly sort of late on. So this may be more complete than I think it's going to be. You see, he's got both his missile launchers, which is lovely. Oh, look at that. He's just so damn cool. It's just so damn cool. And he's only got little teeny tiny little sort of vertical fins at the end of his tail, and I just thought that was very epic as well. Because he doesn't look like an F-15, he looks a bit different, you know, because he's got great big turbo fans built into his wings for no apparent reason. So it gives him the impression that he could do VTOL as well, which is cool. Interestingly, the colour of his cockpit, and I don't think the cockpits do open actually. I think this is. Now, the reason I was watching that video I mentioned was because I was trying to figure out what line of toys these might have been before they were Transformers. And the fact that he's got an opening cockpit suggests to me it was designed to be piloted by a smaller figure, but I could be completely wrong about that. I didn't delve into it because I thought that's just a rabbit hole and I'm going to not film the video in time. So I left that conceptually, but I do sort of wonder about that slightly. I'm sure somebody in the comments will be able to tell me what is and isn't the case with that as a sort of a concept, because I'm sure there is something to be told there, I'm sure. So I've also got another little bag of goodies here, so let's have a quick look at this and see what's actually been put in. A bit of ASMR rustling here. I do love it when I get. That's right. So his stickers are actually unapplied. Now what do? Do I apply his stickers? I don't really want to apply his stickers, but I could apply his stickers. Will they still be stickers? I mean, I know they're attached to the sheet, sure, but I mean, whether or not they're actually still stickable is an entirely different question, I feel. So I'm not entirely sure what I would choose to do with those, to be fair. I don't know. That's a slightly tricky one. That is a slightly tricky one. Now in here I have got excellent. So I have 2 shooty missiles. Count them 2. So that's nice. That's very, very nice. So he'll display well because I can at least put those into the missile launchers and know that they're there, which is super. And I have a nose wheel. Now, if I could actually get it to focus, that would be excellent. There you go. So this is the thing. They actually did come with a nose wheel, but they don't retract. So unlike some Poppy toys I've been looking at recently, they don't allow for the retention of the nose wheel in aircraft mode, in flight mode. So you can't, you have to have your accessories for that sort of approach. So really nice to get those though. It's one of the things that drew me to this particular auction, because I thought it would be nice to have him sort of displayed with the weapons, which you often have to find separately. There's actually a little bit of his sprue. They came on sprues, and if you can I don't know if you can see that, but there's a little bit of his sprue still attached to the missile there. So I might need to try and clean that up a little bit. See him on the other one actually. So yeah, I thought when I was looking at when I looked at him on the underneath, I thought he looked quite bare, and that's why. It's because his stickers are not attached. Now this is going to be very cool as well. So we've got the classic G1 instructions leaflet here, which is largely superfluous because it's not difficult, but it does tell you what you're supposed to get, of course. And he does have longer missiles. So he's got these 2 longer missiles here. Now they're described as air-to-air missiles, but to me they look more like Starscream's null rays. So I know I'm missing that. I also know that I'm missing his fists, but I have a potential source for a couple of fists, so I should be able to sort that out. Got label sheets and I've got a tech specs decoder that I'm missing, but I do have a front landing gear, so I'm not doing too badly. Start. Welcome to the world of the Transformers, a world of heroic Autobots and evil Decepticons. Adult supervision may be necessary for younger children. So yeah. So to make the plane, you basically stick stuff onto it and then you make the plane. It's fairly straightforward. Various center sections. So to transform plane to robot, follow these step-by-step instructions. Remove all pieces attached to plane body. I can't remember if I did that. From underneath, push up center sections of body. They make the arms. Rotate center sections to sides of plane. Fold nose in half in front of cockpit. Push end of nose through hole in middle of plane. Just thinking that I think he does transform exactly like the early G1 jets, but I remember that I think in the comics they tend to leave their nose cones up. Yeah, so I think in the early comics that somebody misinterpreted it and left them looking like that. I could be wrong, but something in my memory banks is sort of saying that's not how they did it. And then his tail fins then sort of attached to help him be stable. And then you basically put everything else back on. So I've even got I've got instructions there for what to do with my my stickers. So yeah, interesting. So yeah, proof of authenticity. So you can find a black square label and rub it, and reveals the face. Of course, that was how they did it back in the day. And then you study your tech specs using a tech spec decoder, which I do not possess. I'm not even sure if I've ever picked one up along the way, but I'm sure you could fashion one out of see-through red plastic if you so desired. But this is also going to be interesting because I've got a catalogue. And actually, I remember now, I think I must have been looking at this at the same time as another auction, because I remember looking at that auction and thinking it would be cool because not only did it have the toy itself, but that had no sort of particular nostalgia for me, but it did have the catalogue, and I thought that would be interesting. But this is a cool poster. That is a classic piece of G1 artwork, that. Megatron versus Optimus Prime. That's very cool. That's almost worth the price of admission in itself, really. And that is very much the sort of the toy Megatron and the toy Optimus, because Megatron did have this weird sort of curly thing going on. It's like he's got chest hair. He's got this sort of manly robotic chest hair going on. But that is what the toy looked like. So that is a kind of toy accurate Megatron who's blasting away at Prime there. And again, the Prime is also far more toy accurate than that one on the back of the box, ironically, because his gun looks like his guns, which is good. And you can see that his wheels and everything else are still there, so they didn't hide away in those days. So that's very cool. Only the real Transformers have these badges. What I find really interesting about that is the fact that they were sort of, they must have had knockoffs in mind even back then. And obviously, as a child, it wasn't something I was thinking about at all. But I've seen a lot of Jumpstarter knockoffs. I don't know if there were many mainstream Transformer knockoffs, I must admit. It's not something I've ever sort of delved into. Look at this, though. There you go. Mention the Jumpstarters and they shall appear. This is great. Autobot versus Decepticon. The evil Decepticons have come to destroy Earth. Only the heroic Autobots can save us. Autobot leader, who doesn't get a name, but I saw that mentioned in the catalogue recently. Or someone mentioned, oh no, I tell a lie, he does have a name, but his name is teeny tiny down here next to his trailer. He's just titled as Autobot leader. So this is in the age, and this is I keep wanting to call it G2, but it isn't. It's sort of kind of wave 2 of G1. So we've got the Dinobots, and you'll notice there's an omission there, but it isn't an omission because this is clearly a UK box. There is no Swoop. We did not get Swoop in Britain, which is harsh because he was all over the comics. He got a lot of comic time in the UK comics. We did not get a toy. it's upsetting, quite frankly, and stupid, really, because, you know, what's the point in having the Dinobots if you can't have all the Dinobots? Now, if you didn't read the comic, you might not have known that he existed, in which case, fine. But for those of us who were into the comic, that was annoying. I mean, obviously, it's also annoying that half of them don't transform into the way they're depicted in the comics, but that's, you know, anyway. Robot cars: Blue Streak, Grapple, Red Alert, Skids, Trailbaker, Jazz, Sunstreaker, Smokescreen, yeah, the other guy, Ratchet, Hoist, Inferno, Mirage, Hound, Trax, Wheeljack, Ironhide, Prowl, Sideswipe. Did I have all of those? Did I Eckers like? I had Red Alert for no apparent reason. I had Ratchet, and I had Sunstreaker. Ratchet's a weird one. Ratchet is so not what he looks like in the TV series and the comics at all. Very, very, very early doors he did, and then they made him far more humanoid like everyone else later. I also had Trax. I remember having Trax, and I did not have Sideswipe or Ironhide or any of the others, I don't think. I'm sure I played with them at one point at someone else's house, but I didn't have them. Topspin and Twin Twist I have now. I've reacquired them because they're not difficult to get, and they're just fun little robots, really. I'd hesitate to call them Transformers because that picture there just tells you exactly what jump starters do. They jump and then they're done. That's it. We've also got the mini-bots, mini-vehicles. We've got Huffer and Powerglide and Gears and Bumblebee and Sea Spray and Cliff Jumper and Cosmos and Windcharger and Brawn and Warpath and Beachcomber, if I haven't said him already. And they were the sort of the core group. I had a lot of them because they are the cheap ones. They are the cheapest chips ones. So, you know, if you didn't have a huge amount of cash to hand, then these were the guys that you wanted, basically. And they would fit in your pocket quite happily as well. So I frequently took them to school because you could get away with that, you know, and obviously they just gave you 2 toys in one. And then Decepticon cassettes. We got Soundwave, of course, their Imperious leader, for the cassettes at least. Buzzsaw, Laserbeak, Frenzy in blue, which is correct. Ravage and Rumble in red, which is correct. Curse you, the 80s cartoon series, right. So, those are the Decepticon cassettes, and I hesitate to say I had all of them. I think I had Rumble and Ravage and Laserbeak, and presumably Buzzsaw because I would have had Soundwave. But I can't remember if my Soundwave was second-hand originally. Possibly. We had Megs there, Megatron, which I did have. Then somebody broke him. Interesting. This is one of the jets. This isn't Thrust, but this is one of Thrust's cousins. I'm hesitating to say, I want to say that's Dirge. I think Ramjet was a whiter one. Oh, in fact, I'll be able to identify them from this idiot. Right. We also got the triple changes here. So you've got Astro Train, which I had. He was awesome because he was a space shuttle. Spaceship! And Blitzwing was the other one, who also does look cool and does transform into a tank and a jet fighter, but I think I could only afford one, quite frankly, so I had to make the call. Obviously, Astro Train being a train, not so cool, but quite an interesting transformation on those, because, you know, they do the triple change thing all in one. They don't need extra pieces and so on, so fair dues to them. And we have the Insecticons, none of which I ever had. So we had Shrapnel, Bombshell and Kickback there. And we've got, Ramjet, Dirge, that one's definitely Dirge, Starscream, Thrust, Skywarp and Thundercracker. So yeah, all of them. So that is very, very cool, because that was at a time when conceivably, if you had a reasonable amount of money in your pocket, you might actually have been able to collect them all. You might have had all of the robots in disguise because it wasn't a huge toy line at that point in time. And yet, even then, there are lots of omissions there from the line that other countries got. So we got this much more limited line in the UK as compared with what other people were seeing. So I'm going to follow the instructions now. I think it would be rude not to transform him as I've got him. And I'm completely ignoring what you're supposed to do here, because I'm supposed to take his missile launchers off his wings. It's kind of weird, this. You've got to completely dismantle him to then reassemble him according to the instructions. I wonder if his rub still works. Let's have a look. I think it's probably going to. It looks like it's in good condition. I mean, he doesn't even look like he's been played with that much. I don't know what makes me say that, but I guess the fact that the stickers haven't been applied, yeah, that rub is awesome. The fact that the stickers haven't been applied suggests to me that somebody wasn't that fussed. That's cool. Again, that almost seems too good. I mean, I don't know, maybe there's somebody out there doing repro ones, I don't know, but I don't know. I just think he's in really good condition, actually. He just doesn't look like he's been sort of banged up. There don't seem to be any sort of paint chips or anything off him, which is nice. So you just push the. Oh, this is so weird. It's just like it's like he's quite loose, but he's like second nature doing it. It's really odd. And you split his nose in two is the instruction, I believe. Then that rotates down to form his chest. If I can actually get it in there, that would be great. Fold his feet down. I want to pull his feet out, but maybe that's not a thing. No, it isn't a thing, strangely. One of the slightly annoying, the slightly misleading things, I suppose, about the G1 Transformers is that they look as if they're going to be far more flexible than they actually are. Because the instructions depict the toys as having sort of actual working knee joints and so on. I've no idea if I don't think I'm doing this quite right, because unless I left something else in the way there. Because I'm just noticing that he's got quite a big tab there. So I can't logically push him through that way, otherwise I'll end up breaking something. So do I need to go... What have I done wrong there? Oh, like that, there we go. That's better. That's it, I've got it now. I actually have no idea how I did that. I did that without thinking about it. That's so weird. But anyway, I've got him up in the right position now, so that's right. So I'm sure that in the comics at one point, some of the Seekers went around looking like that. Maybe it was on Cybertron. Maybe it's because they had their alt modes and the Cybertronian alt modes, and that's why they look different. But I'm sure that was possibly the case. So once you've got him back like that, that is so weird seeing him without stickers on as well. That is really odd. It's like, well, he looks naked. Like, where are your stickers, dude? It's like, come on, what's going on? It's weird. Okay, so then you put the wings back on, sort of down here on his hips, like this. And I think they do rotate back, so you could in theory put them behind him a little bit, so you could probably sort of angle them, but I'm not gonna. It seems a bit stiff, so I'm not going to try that as a concept. And then you pop his tail fins back onto the bottom of his feet, like this, he says. Oh, I can write hash of this. There you go. And that just gives him a little bit more balance, because ironically, it's only the very, very back corners of his tail fins that are actually giving him support. That's slightly ironic. It's annoying that doesn't clip in better, because it means that every time you knock his cone, his entire chest just sort of flips up. But I'm sure if it was newer, it would probably stay in place better. And then you just pop his missile launchers / blasters onto the side of his arms. And then he can just shoot you to death with the power of his arms. There you go. So that is Thrust. That is Thrust without fists, but with a nose wheel. And you can load these bad boys in to there, like that. The thing is, you could just pretend they didn't have to be missiles. You could just pretend that they were blasters or whatever. I have no idea if these missile launchers have got any oomph behind them. I don't think they particularly did. Yeah, I mean, it drops out, but it's got no... This particular example hasn't got much of a spring to it. That's probably just age. Oh, no, that's better, actually. That was better. Yeah, so it's still got a little bit of oomph to it. It's probably just not been used for a very, very, very long time. Yeah, it's okay. It's more proportional to how hard you actually press it down, I think. It's not so much that it's spring-loaded, it's just how hard you're pressing it, in my particular example anyway. But anyway, you know, so there you have the very sort of, the colour-coordinated thrust. I don't mind it without stickers, actually. Strangely. I mean, to my mind, that makes more sense in the sense that if you want it to have a believable alt mode, why would you put lots of shiny robot stickers on it? You know, if he's actually supposed to be in disguise, it makes far more sense for him to be low-key. So actually, I think that's quite a nice way to display him in a sense. It's not the proper way to display him because it's not as his toy should be. But nonetheless, I rather like that as a concept. Yeah, it's quite cool actually. I quite like it without the stickers, oddly. And what were the odds of finding one without the stickers? Slim, I would suggest. So, what's he carbon dated, I wonder? Unfortunately, you might be able to see that on the big screen, but I can't see it to read it to you, unfortunately. I want to say I can see an 84 there, but I could be completely wrong. There's definitely a little copyright symbol, but I think some of that's in Japanese. Yeah, it says Japan there. Yeah, copyright Takara, which makes sense because it would have been. And that's why I was hunting for the Diaclone era stuff, you know, because I was thinking that they was probably one of those that was converted again, like Starscream and Skywarp and so on. But yeah, they were cool. I only ever had one, and this was him. I never had any more of the Seekers. He was my one and only Seeker. But yeah, he's great fun to have had that in my hand again. Really, really great fun to have that in my hand, and I think it would be rude not to get his fists now that I know they're definitely not in this box. Literally have not looked at him, you know, more than this before I started doing the video, so I was not completely certain. And in fact, even on the outside of the box, interestingly, it tells you that includes thrust plane, 2 wings, 2 tail fins, 2 missile launchers, 4 air-to-air missiles, front landing gear, 2 fists, label sheet, instructions, text specs decoder, and a partridge and a pear tree. All right, I made up the partridge bit and the pear tree, but you know, that is him. And what a terrific thing to have in hand again. It's just one of those things. When I sort of started this kind of collecting journey, I never would have thought that I would have ended up with a boxed Thrust again all these years later, because I bet he came out a solid 40 years ago. And I know it's not, you know, it's not a minty box, but it gives me the feels, you know. And isn't that what you want? You want the feels when you pick up something like this. If you're going to go to the trouble of actually getting one that's boxed, then I think you're really wanting it for the nostalgia factor as much as anything else. And the thing is, I quite like the fact that it's a beaten up box. That makes no sense whatsoever, I know, but you know, it gives it the impression of being a played with toy. This orange cockpit window is really annoying me now. I wonder if it came out in orange in other countries, and for some reason we just got this more sort of, you know, straight out see-through one. Because even the pictures of the toy, look at the picture of the toy and is on the back there. That's clearly an orange cockpit. That's troubling me now. Well, it's not troubling me. That would be exaggerating, but I am curious. I am somewhat curious. Don't know if I showed you all the flaps, but again, it's just that breakdown of what's actually in the box, basically. So you know, if you need to check that nothing's been nabbed, then that is how you would do it. So that, fair viewers, is the evil Decepticon G1 Seeker Thrust. Cheers for now, and I'll see you again for another one before very long. Bye.